All New X-Men Volume Number 1, Yesterday's X-Men is what we're going to look at. This volume consists of All New X-Men, issues number 1 through 5. Written by Brian Michael Bendis, pencil by Stuart Immonen, inker is Wade von Grawbadger, colorist is Marte Carcia, letterer is VC's Cory Petit, editor is Nick Lowe, assistant editor is Jordan D. White. This is published by Marvel. A quick note. Considering that it takes a team to make a comic, why did Comixology, not sponsors by the way, did they leave out so many people in the credits? Just asking, because on their store page it just lists the writer and the penciler. So speaking of that, Brian Michael Bendis is someone I have heard of. I don't really know the guy, to be honest, or his work. I just know that he was mentioned in certain comic-related YouTube channels like Critical Thinker, I think, and various others. Though, since these guys tend to be a bit more on the negative side, like all YouTube critiquers, so quote-unquote, I may be remembering incorrectly about how they feel about the guy. That being said, putting that aside, the X-Men from the past come to the modern day. How is that going to work? To continue the discussion, or if you want to help with the discussion, do the YouTube thing, help feed the algorithm so I can spread amongst the YouTube masses. So let's get into it. Black and white / color. American comic, color comic. This team of Immonen, Grawbadger, and Carcia basically knocked it out of the park here. I really enjoyed looking at the pages and appreciating the finer details. The high quality is consistent throughout this volume, which is good because sometimes it's not. And bringing in the first iteration of the X-Men to the modern day would be difficult to say at the very least. After all, when they first appeared, it was a very camp and ultra stylistic that doesn't exactly age well into the modern times, but they made it work here. I am giving this a star plus because good art is good art. Panels and expression. It's no secret that I just don't like plain square panels. They make things a little bit too boring and simplistic, and yet very much required in this medium. But the best writers and illustrators can make the boring square and rectangles exciting, and this has enough variation to keep it fresh and interesting. Though that being said, I think these books were made to view 2 pages at a time, or put another way, I think they were made 2 pages at a time, especially if you're looking at it digital. The composition of the panels just works that way, which is kind of a downside if you wanted it in print. So for that, I am just giving it a star. It's good, but, points off for forgetting its original medium. Also, this sounds a little bit biased, but considering that the other US comics I have read recently had some issues to the paneling, to say at the very least, weren't all that great in my opinion. This is clearly on the top side, or the top tier of things, but considering the lower quality of the other American comics, this makes it really hard to judge, since this isn't the norm for paneling. So again, that's why it got the star. Characters and dialogue. So we have lots of characters, so it's very confusing if you're not familiar with the X-Men lore. But not so much that you really can't understand what's going on. No one feels out of place with the dialogue or the characters, except for maybe Wolverine, who really gets dumped on here. But that being said, there are some quibble in the use of language, but that would be nitpicking. Like, this team came out during the 60s, and, you wouldn't be 100% understanding, the modern 2010 dialogue among young people. But again, that's small potatoes. It was competent, so it gets a star, but nothing really stood out to give it that extra thing that I would say I really like. So, again, star. Theme / execution. This seems to be a great story to explore the themes of changes of characters over time. We have the original 5 X-Men come to the future to meet the new X-Men, so anything related to the characterization can be explored in a meta fashion without doing the whole fourth wall break like Deadpool and She-Hulk. The question of who are these characters and who do we want them to be? It is very riveting indeed. Open-ended question, and focusing primarily on that is a plus for this volume, because somehow it feels like every DC or Marvel comic like tries to do everything at once in one run, so the focus is all over the place. This doesn't have it, so I am giving it a star. It was just the beginning, so maybe they'll expand on certain things a lot more, but I like what I see so far. I don't know if I love it, because it depends on the entire arc of the story, but so far, yes, star. Okay. Plot/execution. So, spoilers. The plot involves how the current iteration of the X-Men, or at least at the time of this print, who are split. Scott Summers is leading the more radical group called the Xavier School of the Gifted with Magneto, and Storm, Wolverine, Kitty Pryde, Hank McCoy is leading the other School of the Gifted, which is named Jean Grey School of the Gifted. That's where we are starting. Hank is apparently sick, and he brings back the original 5 X-Men from the past to show Scott he has gone down the wrong path. It is interesting, no doubt about that at all. There are certain nitpicks here and there, but that's nitpicking. Like, Hank is sick, past Hank sees an error in the math, Hank is stabilized, but Scott's group picked up a healer mutant, so I am predicting that this healer mutant and Hank will meet up. Nitpick. Doesn't hurt the plot, in my opinion, at least so far. If this is indeed the case, it helps weave in the past events without relying on exposition and narration boxes, so I am giving this a star plus. Conclusion: 5 stars, 2 pluses, making a solid score of 7. Definitely something to recommend. Amazing, the reporting done by IGN was correct, at least on this. US comics are always a bit difficult to get into. No issue is currently at the beginning of any story. There's always so much backstory and lore that, it's very easy to feel lost, especially if you don't know where to start. I mean, if you pick any one issue, it feels like a lot of the story is already past. There's always, those histories that you're not seeing, and it's always nuanced, and they're always moving it so quickly. But this one seems pretty self-contained in that we know that one event has ended and a new one is beginning. It helps ease you into this, and it does it in a way that makes that transition feel smooth. It is a very difficult tightrope to walk, and this book has done it well. There is a nitpick, like I mentioned before, how nerfed Wolverine felt, as if he was like the butt of the joke. In this, in fact, it almost seems like he was functioning as the joke character, like he is dwarfed big time. You would think that the new X-Men wouldn't be as powerful as the current one, but it turns out, hey, sometimes they are. But considering the limitation of the US comic book medium, you only get 12 issues per year. Speeding things up is understandable. So, overall, it was a good read as a whole. I don't know how people feel about it or felt about waiting month per issue, because it works really well as one big story. I can't imagine getting only 15 pages at a time and then being like, okay, now what? It probably affected its readability. That being said, I do recommend it. So thank you again for making it this far. I hope you did enjoy this review and the content. Help the channel, feed the algorithm, and I hope you're having a good day or good evening. Ciao, everybody.